Okay, so I moved into the house in Flagler Beach in October of 2015. It was a great house, fell in love with it. It was a great location, good neighborhood, good people. And a property management company called the Selby Group, there locally in town, was the one that was managing it for the owner. And the owner was a husband and wife, or is a husband and wife, and they live in Maryland. And from what I understand, he's a police officer or a police chief up there. So when I moved in, there was just the yard was just really no grass. It was all sand. Things had died. They had no gutters. The house wasn't really put together and loved. So over the course of the first year, I had asked prior to moving, and the property management agreed, hey, can I put up a fence? Yes, you can put up a fence. Hey, I want to add some landscaping. Is that okay? Yep, you can put in landscaping, trees. Spent a lot of money getting the dirt together, the trees together, and we had planned on purchasing this home. But the owners, what we were told, were looking for another home in the nearby area, and then we would discuss it later. So the first year was no problem. Went to renew my lease into the second year. It was no problem. And the hurricane hit. Hurricane Matthew hit in October. I think it was October 8th or 10th. And my family, there's three of us that live in that house, along with two service dogs, because we're both disabled veterans. And we were on a family vacation in South Dakota. So about 2 days before it hit, Todd, who's the head of our household, he flew back to Florida. And the hurricane shutters were supposed to be there in the house, and they were not a complete set. So Todd talked to the property manager. They said, yes, I'll reimburse you. Just go ahead and get some made. So he made them by hand. He put them up. The home was secured. And then he evacuated to Sarasota. And he was allowed to come home a couple of days later. Myself and his son's girlfriend were in South Dakota. And we were going to drive home with supplies. Originally, we were going to fly, but because of the hurricane, we were going to drive. So I had my parents' car, and I bought a generator, and I bought fuel, and I had a cooler in there because they didn't have any power. They didn't have any of that in Florida. Well, by the time I would leave from South Dakota to Florida, I wouldn't be able to make it because of all the traffic, no hotels, no gas, etc. And my son has a disability, and he has to have certain medications, and he has to have his food, which is refrigerated. Plus, they didn't have power at home, so we thought, hey, the generator, definitely something FEMA's going to want to reimburse us on. So his son and his girlfriend and I drove the long route. We went through Denver and then down to Florida, and when we were able to get in, it was perfect timing. So they'd been out of power for 5 days, et cetera, et cetera. So the homeowner was contacted by us and the property management company, and FEMA was called, insurance adjuster, etc. So everybody came out to the house. FEMA was shown that there was water spots in the bedroom and the garage, which were minute. The windows where the water had come in had just taken the paint off the walls, and the fence that we had put up had blown down. And let's see, there was a couple other little things. But for me personally, as the renter, it wasn't anything for us. It was all for the homeowner. So he told his insurance company that was his fence and it blew down, and he put in a claim for it. He was there at the house. He saw all the trees. He saw everything he'd agreed to. The shed that was ours, which was all removable, same with the fence. Everything was fine. He was aware of it. There was no problem. Next thing I know, I start getting emails from the property management company saying we didn't have permission to put a fence on the property. We didn't have permission to put the grass in. We didn't, and they wanted to start attacking us. And that was because I was asking them for the reimbursements for the shutters, the reimbursements for the plane ticket home. Because if Todd had not flown home, the owner would have been responsible, and they would have sent a contractor out. Now, Todd is disabled, which our property company knows, which is why he has a service dog, which is something they know, and that we were out of town and on vacation, which is something that they knew. So they wanted to turn around and start saying they never knew we were out of town. They would have called a contractor. They're not paying us. and they didn't call anybody to look at the damage. So between October and February, the damage in the bedroom, master bedroom, was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the wall started forming bubbles, and it started having water drops, and then it started leaking on the floor, and it started crawling across the wall this way, and then it came down like this. So it was the ceiling and the wall. And I'm giving the property manager updates. I'm giving them photos. I'm writing on there, you know, like today was January this date, it was this big, and then the next day it got bigger, and the next day. So I'm annotating it. And they're not coming, they're not coming, they're not coming. We're getting ready to go on vacation February 3rd to go to Colorado. It's a veteran adaptive trip that we like to go with. So we said a couple weeks before, I said, hey man, can you get somebody over here to look at this so that while I'm on vacation, my ceiling doesn't cave in? No, they couldn't do that. Just so happens 2 days before my trip, the ceiling caved in. And mold, like mold boogers this long, all different colors were exposed. So the property management was called, and they sent out a non-licensed handyman. Very nice gentleman, but he wasn't licensed. And he cut a hole into the ceiling, which was bigger than the 10 by 10, which is required for handyman versus contractor. And then more mold was exposed, and the beam was completely saturated. So that means it'd been there a long time, the mold that had been there a long time. So he left it open, left all the debris on the floor, and said that they would be in contact with us. Never heard a thing again. We had to go on vacation the next day, and while we were gone, they left the house on, the air on, all that stuff. So all that mold was just, one, we were being slowly poisoned from the time we moved in because it had always been there and we didn't know it. Then once it was exposed and we were gone for a week with all that open, it was in the home. So while I'm on vacation, I'm talking to the property management company. Mind you, this is the Selby Group, and this is Melanie Provencher, whose sister is the mayor. And she said no, she would not honor our requests and have the home tested to make sure it was safe for us to be in before we came home. She told us to sleep in another bedroom. Now, Todd's son has an autoimmune disorder. It's called gastroparesis, and he can't be exposed to anything. So it wasn't going to be safe for him to come home at all. So we sent him home with a friend. Todd and I, upon return, slept in Bryce's bedroom upstairs where the damage wasn't even. And we immediately went to the emergency room that night, coughing up blood. We came home from the emergency room. We were back in the emergency room the next morning. Can't breathe, a lot of problems. So we've got now onset COPD, we've got onset asthma, we're coughing up blood. Over the next 2 weeks, there would be 2 blood clots and a heart attack to follow. Just respiratory issues, not. So that first night after we got sick, we never went back to the house to live. We went and stayed in a hotel till we could all find out what was happening and how it would be fixed. Property management company, the Selby Group, did not care. Melanie Provencher went on vacation to Ireland for 10 days. That's how important this was, that we were coughing up blood, that this was a problem. We didn't have anywhere to live. The ceiling was exposed. So this became a nightmare. We immediately called the mold report people, and they came and they did swabs on the home and they did air samples. And they said, no, you cannot be in this house. You guys are having serious reactions to this. And of course, that was, what, $600 out of pocket. Okay. So I give this information to the property management company, and they're like, you're liars. We don't care. You guys just want to buy a new house. You know, you guys want to get out of your lease, blah, blah, blah. No, that didn't happen. So I reported to FEMA, and I gave them an update. And I said, hey, look, the damage was there in October, and it's gotten worse because it has been neglected, and the damage is continuing to come in. So every time it rains, it gets more saturated, et cetera, et cetera. I told them that we were living in a hotel, we were sick, what we were experiencing. I asked them for assistance living in a hotel. They denied me. They originally denied the generator because FEMA doesn't do that, is what they said. They said you need to have a generator because of prescription medication that requires refrigeration or refrigerated foods. So I provided that information to FEMA about my son's disability, or Todd's son's disability, and his food and his medicine, etc. They denied it. So then I gave them all the information, probably 3 packs of stacks about this high. And it was all my hotel bills, it was the food, it was medical bills, it was the mold report itself, it was how much it costs, etc., etc. And the property management company wouldn't do anything. They were like, well, we have to call the owner. He doesn't want to fix it. We'll caulk the upstairs balcony. Okay, well, that's not the problem, but you go ahead because you feel like you have to do something. So he had the handyman caulk the upstairs balcony where he thought the water was coming in, and it protruded it even further and made a mess of it. So Todd used to be a contractor. He used to do construction. He knew exactly where the problem was and what it was. So after we had came home and they said, hey, sleep in your son's bedroom, whatever. We're living in a hotel, but they're on vacation. Now I have to wait for them living in a hotel and experiencing health problems. All our medical stuff is in the house. All our, everything we need. And there's one service dog. So we're definitely concerned about his health. And we called his organization, and they set up some testing to be sent to Cornell University. And they said he came back good. As far as we understand, that's okay. He hasn't acted right since. We wanted to know what kind of mold it was. So we had another mold report done because mold, after learning all of this, is what's responsible for pretty much 100% of all health concerns in the United States. That's in contaminated water. So I have another report done, paid another $600 for it. The Selby Group brought in their different company to do some air sample tests, a different company, and they did not get the same results. So now I have 3 reports. I just got the other one done, and they have 1. And theirs contradicts mine, and all 3 of mine are the same, the same findings. So it was, this happened on February 3rd when the ceiling caved in. March 10th, I got a 7-day notice to vacate the property. And that's because I had already given them 2 7-day notices to make the repairs, or I was withholding rent. I had already paid February's rent. It was due on the 1st. They should have refunded me. I couldn't have lived there since February 3rd. They wanted March's rent, even though they knew the home was damaged and we couldn't use it. So they were trying to do the percentages in the landlord-tenant law where, like, if it's only affected this much of your house, you only pay this much. Well, the damage was also in the garage. And the garage is below our son's bedroom, which is where we stayed the night we started coughing up blood. So those water spots had already been there, and they had just grown just a little bit, which was reported to FEMA and whatnot. But over the course of the next several weeks, just the same nonsense. Oh, we'll have somebody out there. Oh, we'll have somebody out there. They're supposed to give you 12 hours notice. We're in the emergency room. She wants me to give an hour notice. And then they want to say it's an emergency, but it's not because it hasn't been an emergency. They went on vacation. They don't care. They're not trying to make any kind of accommodations for us. So FEMA denies me and denies me and denies me and denies me. And they said that the property management company is the only one who can assist me in writing a letter saying that the house was not able to be repaired while I was living in it, or that it was not safe, which is why I couldn't live in it, which is why I already had the mold report that stated that in all the hospital records and prescriptions and visits and stuff, which FEMA completely ignored. Now this company, Selby Management Company, is in a lot of trouble. They didn't even give back my security deposit until this week, and it's been almost 7 months. Okay, they still haven't returned February's rent. They tried to extort March out of me. All of the stuff I lost, I'm not getting compensation for any of it. I have to take them to civil court, the property management company and the owners, and spend all this money in a personal injury case. I too had a service dog as a disabled veteran. He died in May, and he was monitored very closely. Every 6 months, he had his blood panels done. He had his liver looked at. He like had everything looked at, and he was completely healthy. 1 month prior to his death, he died May 20th, and his appointment was with the vet prior to that was April 20th, and he was good to go. And talking with the veterinarians after his death, after we found out about the mold and we're very concerned about the other dog as well, they concluded that it was most likely the mold that killed my dog. So now I have a dead service dog. We have 3 injured people. We are homeless and living in a hotel. That was $17,000. We had to borrow money. We had to get help from nonprofits, and then we had to move out of state. One, we wanted clean air. Two, that was just a stepping point for us until Bryce could finish school. So we're moving cross country, and we needed help with nonprofits. FEMA was not coming to our system. They were going to help us. Right after the hurricane, I want to say about 3 weeks after Hurricane Matthew, there was a letter that came down from the government. Said anybody living on a coastal barrier island will not receive any FEMA assistance.